Welcome to my kitchen. My name is Melanie, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my go-to perfect salmon recipe. It turns out amazing every single time I make it. This is the recipe that I always make when I have guests coming to my home, if I want to impress them, or if I just want to make a really good home-cooked meal. This salmon recipe, it gives you that nice crust on the outside of the salmon and a really moist interior. It is so good. It's got a little bit of Asian flavors. Honestly, I have never had a salmon as good as this one. So I'm gonna share with you my secret recipe, and I hope you guys try it and enjoy it as well. I'm just gonna gather all of the ingredients and I'm gonna walk you through step by step exactly what to do to make this salmon. Okay, let's get cooking. So the first thing you're gonna need obviously is some salmon, and mine does not have the skin on. However, I do prefer salmon that has the skin on, so if you can find it, I recommend that. And if it's not portioned already, your first step is just to slice up your salmon into the portion sizes that you like. And then you're also gonna need a Ziploc bag, because once you're done slicing them, you'll just throw them in this bag here, and we're gonna make a quick marinade and throw everything together. And I find the bag is easiest, but if you prefer, you can also throw everything into a bowl. So I'm just gonna portion out my salmon, and then we'll work on our marinade next. So we'll just set this aside, and then we're gonna work on the marinade. So now I'm just gonna make a marinade, and with this marinade, I have made this recipe many times where I quickly whip up the marinade and just let it rest with the salmon while I'm preparing the rest of my dinner. So you don't have to let it sit for very long. It will still taste really good. However, the longer this sits, like 3-4 hours, or even I've made it where it sits overnight, the better. So I do recommend, if you can give yourself even a few hours before dinner to let it rest and soak up that marinade, but don't let that stop you from making this recipe if you just want to throw everything together quickly. So you're gonna need an orange or orange juice, a lemon, garlic, and this is pure toasted sesame oil, and you can usually find this at the Asian section of your grocery store. This is what mine looks like. It just gives it a really, really nice flavor. You don't want to skip out on this. Also maple syrup or honey. That's what's gonna make it nice and caramelized on the outside. So you need some kind of sugar. Dijon mustard, a little bit of pepper and salt. Soy sauce, I like to use tamari, but any kind of soy sauce will be just fine. And then an oil. So I use olive oil, but you could also use a grapeseed oil or any oil of your preference. So I'm gonna show you what I do. And I usually eyeball this, so I don't have the exact measurements right now, but I will type everything up and put it in the description below if you are interested in seeing exact measurements. Okay, so you'll want a measuring cup or a bowl so that you can put all of the ingredients together. And let's get going. So I'm gonna start with the garlic. And I usually will use 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, depending on how much salmon I have. And also depending on the size of the garlic cloves. But these ones are a pretty big, pretty good size. So I'm gonna use 3 of them today. Just wanna mince it. I'm gonna do the soy sauce next, and I usually do about 1/4 cup. About that much, whoops. And I'll get Dijon, just get a spoon. I only have a little bit left here, but do about a tablespoon of this. Good thing about this recipe is it doesn't have to be exact. Kind of eyeball it and it's gonna turn out. Okay, so the maple syrup, you'll wanna do about 1/4 cup as well. The toasted sesame oil, you'll do about, let me see here, a tablespoon. A little bit of oil, probably 1/4 cup. Now the orange. Just gonna, oh, that's too big. These are good oranges. Yeah, squeeze some of that in. I'm just guessing we're gonna need about half an orange here, or about maybe a quarter cup of orange juice. Just gonna see how it's looking here. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and the last, do about half a lemon. And a little bit of pepper. Good dash of salt. And we're gonna salt and pepper the salmon before we cook it as well, so you don't have to go too crazy on the salt and pepper. I'm just gonna mix it up. Probably could have used a little bit less orange juice because it is a little bit liquidy, but that's okay. Like I said, this recipe, you can't really mess it up. As long as you get all these ingredients in here, it's gonna turn out really good. Like that. You're gonna take your bag of salmon and pour the marinade in. Seal. Push it around. And just pop this in the fridge until you are ready to cook. Okay, so the salmon has been sitting in this marinade now for a couple of hours and I'm ready to start cooking. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna transfer the salmon onto a baking tray that's just lined with foil, just for easier cleanup. And I'm gonna be drizzling a little bit more maple syrup on top, and then I'm gonna be adding some salt and pepper. And I've just preheated my oven to 325, and I have an oven safe pan like this that I'm going to sear the salmon, and then you can either put the pan right in the oven to finish it, or the other option is you can sear your salmon on a frying pan and then transfer it to a larger baking dish and then finish it in the oven on the dish. And that's the method I'm gonna do today because I cannot fit all of this salmon in this pan. So I just find it's easier to do it that way when you're cooking up a lot of salmon. So that's what I'm gonna do. So when you're taking the salmon out, you wanna make sure to get off as much of this marinade as possible. You don't want it too wet, otherwise when you're searing it on the pan, it will be really wet and you won't get that same crust on your salmon. But it's okay to have some liquid, you just don't want all of this liquid. Okay, so I have the salmon on the tray, and I'm just gonna take a little bit of my maple syrup now, and I'm just gonna drizzle a little bit on top. And this is gonna help give it that nice color when I'm searing it in the pan, because the sugars are gonna caramelize, and this just helps that happen. Okay, so once I've drizzled a bit of syrup, I'm now gonna do a little bit of pepper and salt. And now it is ready to go onto the pan. So I'm just gonna preheat my pan now on the stove and make sure it's nice and hot. So you wanna make sure that you preheat your pan properly. You don't wanna add the oil to the pan until it is the right temperature, and I have a trick to show you how to know if your pan is ready. So if you're using a stainless steel pan like this, you're just gonna turn it on medium or medium high, and you're gonna get a little bit of water on your hands. Just gonna this, and then you're gonna drip it onto the pan. You can see my pan is not ready yet because some of it's just evaporating and it's just staying on the pan. You will know that the pan is ready when you drop a little bit of water onto it and it turns into little balls and it starts rolling around on the pan. That's when you want to add your oil and then start searing your food. So I'm gonna show you when my pan is ready. I'll test it again, so I've got some water. You see that? Now it is ready. So I'm just gonna wipe up those water droplets with a cloth so it's nice and dry, and then I will add I'm using avocado oil. You want to use an oil that is good for high heat. And you also want to have some foil ready because as you're cooking the salmon and you're transferring it to your pan, you want to keep it covered so that it stays warm before you put it into the oven. I'm going to drizzle a little bit of oil. Swirl it around. Now be careful, this does splatter. But you want your pan nice and hot because that is what is going to give you that nice sear. Okay, and you don't want to overcrowd your pan. And I like to add a little bit more salt and pepper on the other side while it's in the pan. And just a tip with flipping the salmon, you don't want to flip it until it slides easily on the pan so that it's not sticking to the pan. You'll know it's ready to flip when it's easy to turn over. The point of this step is just to give it a nice color. You're not cooking it all the way through. You're just searing it, and then we're transferring it to this tray, and then it's going to finish cooking in the oven for about 10 minutes or so at 325. But we're going to keep an eye on the temperature because that is the most important thing to keep track of when you're cooking salmon. Otherwise it will dry out and it won't be juicy on the inside. So I'm going to show you what temperature the salmon needs to reach before you take it out. Oh yeah, look at that color. Okay, so now I'm just gonna pop it in the oven and I'm going to set my timer for 8 minutes and I'm gonna check on the salmon. Here's what it looks like right now. Looks so good. Pop it in here. I'm gonna set it for 8 minutes and then I'm gonna check the temperature, and you wanna take it out when it reaches 130 degrees on the inside, and then we're gonna cover it with foil and just let it rest for a few minutes so that it finishes cooking on the countertop. You wanna stick it into the thickest part of the salmon. Okay, so my big one's only at 120. Ooh, my small ones are already done. So I'm gonna take out the small ones first and then let the larger pieces continue to cook. This is the key to not drying out your salmon, is just keeping an eye on the temperature. So depending on the thickness of your salmon, obviously that's going to determine how long it takes to finish cooking in the oven. So set your timer for 5 minutes maybe, and then just check the internal temperature at that time and just see where you're at, and then you can kind of gauge how much more time you need to let it sit in the oven. So like I said before, let it come up to 130 degrees, and then I've taken out the pieces that are done, and I'm just gonna keep them covered with foil on the counter to rest for about 5 minutes. So this part is totally optional, but it's a really nice touch. I'm gonna take some sesame seeds and just put them in a little pan. And while my salmon are just resting here with the foil, I'm going to toast up some sesame seeds, and then when we're ready to eat, I'm going to just sprinkle the sesame seeds on top of the salmon. Okay, so I have my salmon all here. It's been resting for 5 minutes, and it just looks so good. Oh my goodness, look at that. So yummy. So now here's what you want to do. With the rest of the other half of your lemon that you didn't use for the marinade, you're going to save it and you're just going to squeeze a little bit of fresh lemon juice on top of the salmon right before serving. You might only need a little bit of it, like I'm not going to use all of this lemon. And I've actually taken one piece out already and put it on a plate here. I'm just going to do this piece. A little bit of lemon. Oh yeah. And then you're going to take your toasted sesame seeds and you're just going to sprinkle a little bit on top. Look at this. It's the best. I have yet to have a salmon that is better than this. Oh. Well, I hope you guys try this recipe at home, and if you do, please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And also hit the like and subscribe button so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Bye guys, see you next time.